It's On Air Brands Live at Home with Devin Bravaco, Eric Cabral, Josh Terry, Jordan Fraser, and Justin Fraser. Lisa Holbert, Sarah McMillan, Chris Orsi, Jack Turkel, and Jake Resnicki. Hey there, folks. Welcome to the On Air Brands Live Show. We're super excited to be here with you. Thank goodness for technology always helping us in a time of need. How is everybody today? Josh, Lisa, Devin, and our esteemed guest, Mr. Aaron Price, who we will introduce you to very, very shortly. How is my sound here? Because I am...
Absolutely perfect.
Okay, awesome.
Sounding good, Eric. Sounding good.
Yeah, folks. So if you're tuning in for the first time, thank you. This is a live show that we do on Facebook each and every week, Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And then also we are on every single platform that you can imagine, iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, whatever you love. That's where we are. You can find us on Air Brands Podcast. Normally what we do on this show is we document the growing media agency, which is On Air Brands, talk about all the things that we're doing internally, externally, client love. But today, speaking of love, we have a really cool guy that we've met through various channels. I met him personally at an Entrepreneur Magazine event. I know Josh and I worked with him at other events at Podcast Row. Our big shout out to Donnie Zolden for that. And I'm going to give Josh the mic here to do the proper introduction of our friend Aaron Price.
Well, it is Aaron Price. Like you said, I met him probably, it must be a year and a half ago, a year and change ago, definitely. And it was a really exciting meeting because we were at another podcast event. And Aaron today is the president and CEO of New Jersey Tech Council, which I think he'll give us the exact stuff. But about a year ago, I'm guessing it was acquired or had acquired the company he founded, Propellify, which in its own right does a heap of good. And now also, if I'm not mistaken, New Jersey Tech Council reps over 500,000 innovators, repping some of the largest countries, the largest brands and businesses across the country. There is so much to him. Let's bring him right onto the mic. It's Aaron Price. Good to see you.
I'm so excited by that intro. I'm waiting to meet the guy you're bringing on. But
I'm guessing I got some of those statistics correct. So I knew you just when you were the founder of Propellify before the acquisition of New Jersey Tech Council. So before we merge the two of them, I love all Propellify is about. I know that the tag is propelling ideas into action. Give us an overview of what the darn purpose of this Propellify is.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I grew up in New Jersey. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I found the career path to be pretty isolating. My first business was in college, but that was 98 when there wasn't all of this. There, so much networking now around entrepreneurship that didn't exist then, and community around entrepreneurship. And so I started something called the New Jersey Tech Meetup, and that took on a life of its own and really exploded. It's still one of the largest, if not still the largest entrepreneurial group in New Jersey with like 7,500 members. And that inspired the idea for Propellify, which was, could we bring together these people at scale? And I built a nice network in the New York area. And why do we have to go to South by Southwest for this kind of stuff every year? Might there be an opportunity for us to do something much bigger? And so the name Propellify, or the concept of Propellify, was born. The name is rooted in a strong belief that I have, which is ideas aren't easy. It's that you have to propel them into reality, and maintain that momentum. I think there's a lot of metaphors around like all the stuff with, with aerodynamics and maintaining momentum and having not just the captain, but the whole staff. And, the fuselage sitting on the runway which is the representation of the idea, really goes nowhere without the team behind it. And so, this concept was born. We launched in 2016, and to my total amazement, 8,000 people showed up, and we've been doing it now ever since.
It's absolutely amazing. Go ahead. What are you guys thinking?
There's so much. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm wondering, like, you started with this idea and now you grew it into something so big, the process of getting there. How do you take kind of a nugget of an idea and build it into something that, to the place you are now?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't even know that I've had a chance to step back and really look and understand how it got here. But I think it's a lot. I mean, the thing that I think the critical factor, besides the momentum and the ability and the need to continue to drive these things forward, I think is absolute determination. I think if entrepreneurs don't have that quality, you're not really cut out for this industry or this career path. And so I think how I got here was I was not willing, and I'm still not willing, to take no for an answer. It was like, well, no, we're definitely going to do this, and I don't care what it takes. We're going to figure it out. I'm going to network my way into making sure we have the most amazing program we possibly could. So we have had speakers like Gary Vee and Bobby Brown and Governor Murphy and James Altucher. And I mean, we've had now, 500 speakers, and they're not all as well known, but they're all as impressive, equally impressive. And so it just, for me, it was a real test of adversity. If issues came up, whether it was like our liquor license wasn't going to come through, which happened 3 times, and how we figured out how to make that work, to like, there was a massive storm the week of the event in 2017, and half the tents blew off, like hanging over into the river the day before, and how we rallied to fix that. To the volunteer community, like, I didn't really have the resources to do this myself, but I built a really strong network in the New Jersey Tech Meetup, put out a call for help of saying like who wants to lean in. And I made people apply to be volunteers, because I've worked with lots of volunteers and they tend to flake out. So I was expecting we'd have like 5 or 10 hardcore people. We had 105 people who showed up weekly for meetings. So it was really like leveraging my network, the whole thing. I was thinking about this for a while, and I know Josh, and I'm assuming all of you know Gary Vaynerchuk. I was interviewing him at the New Jersey Tech Meetup in August 2015. And I had been working on a startup myself. It was kind of going sideways. I was especially not getting along with my co-founders. I'd been around the founder block a few times. It was like, this is, the average startup takes 8 years to have some kind of exit event. I don't think I can hang out with these guys for 8 more years, even though the product is actually going reasonably well. So I was evaluating, what do I want to do next? And Gary's doing the Gary thing, yelling at the crowd about, lean into your strengths. You got to do what you're best at. You got to follow the things we have, an unfair advantage. And to me, the thing that had emerged as an unfair advantage was my network in the tech community, my relationship with the state of New Jersey, but especially with Hoboken and the mayor, who had said, if you want to do something big, we're open to it. And so it was really his pushing me that got me over the edge in August. In fact, he and I almost launched it together, but it didn't quite work out. And then the next May, I decided, the company was formed January 2021. The first event was May 16th, 2016. And the first event was May 16th, 2016.
Wow. You made so many comments there. We're going to unravel in a moment, but there's another claim to fame as we connect you and Gary Vee. We are all Gary Vee fans. We speak seemingly weekly, or if not many times a week, about our connection to his company and to him and to his people. Last week, we just had our PodMax Global event, and our keynote was James Orsini, his COO and right-hand man. So we're right there with you. But I know one of the great claim to fames is Gary has one of his more famous short video clips is somebody on his way out of an event. He's in the car. Somebody bombards the car with their phone and says, Gary, give me a piece of advice in 3 words, right? So if you could tell us what that clip is and what those 3 words are and what that claim to fame is.
He says that woman, you're going to die. and that was leaving our event. He was fired up that day. You know, he was. I mean, he was doing what he does, but he was especially salty. And I really enjoyed the conversation. And for whatever reason, that was on his mind. Of like, this is the time we were talking. He was saying, like, he was leaning in around like this whole, the festival concept is fun and it's all great, but it's a business event. It's on a weekday. And I was really glad that he was leaning in around like, this might all be well and good and fun. You guys are having drinks and having a good time, but like, this is a work event. You guys should be busting your asses and getting things done. Like, the sense of urgency was real. And so, I'm pleased that quote came from that experience, that he was that fired up.
Just to reiterate, is somebody said, give us a piece of advice in 3 words. And I know he now has those 3 words framed in a big poster in his office. His advice was, you're gonna die. I'm all for that. Think about it.
Yeah, that's deep. It's really, really, really deep. And, Gary is nothing but blunt in his deliveries. Anyone, I've had the fortune of meeting him as well and having some conversations, and it all depends which Gary you're going to meet. If it's in a day that's working out well because it's a big machine, then you may meet the happy Gary, more than happy to jump in on a selfie, or you may meet the Gary that's pressed for time, as he usually is. And there's always a sense of urgency, like you said, Aaron, especially when you've 10x to your life and your community and your network, which is just unbelievable what he's built over the course of time, since Wine Library, but especially over the past 4 to 5 years, I'd say. But Aaron, going to that and building community and a network of people that really look to you for leadership. When you were part of New Jersey, well, you're still part of New Jersey Tech Council, but prior to Propelify coming to fruition, what was your mission then, and what were some of actionable steps that you could sort of quantify to help propel people into action, into execution? Because, like you said, in other shows, ideas are the easy part, right? The hardest part is execution and propelling them into something real. So if you could expand on that, I'm sure the audience would love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of sharing ideas widely. I know you guys know Altucher also, and he talks about exercising your idea muscle. I think that's really critical. I think that for some entrepreneurs, that comes very naturally. They're constantly fueled with ideas, and there's others who I think need to much more deliberately exercise that muscle. But then I'm a big believer in sharing those ideas. There's a lot of people who want to hold things close to the chest. I don't think there is a risk, and I appreciate that risk. But my view is, if you share an idea and someone else actually brings it into the world and is successful with it, they've done so many more steps than you have that you sort of deserve to lose. Because I think the upside of sharing your ideas is significantly greater in that people tend to help refine them and improve them, and sometimes want to join the team and introduce you to people. And the likelihood that someone else actually can take your idea and steal it from you, I think, is just enormously low. Again, it does happen, but I think that the risk is highly worth it. Actionable step would be figure out what is the very first thing you could do to prove that entrepreneurship, I think, is about failing as quickly as possible. What are you getting wrong? Learning what you're getting wrong and turning that into getting it right as soon as you can. And if you can turn it into the direction of being right before you run out of time or money, then you usually can win in some way. And so launching something, we're talking about software, like get some kind of a landing page up as soon as possible, drive some traffic to that landing page, see if you can prove some part of your message is resonating. If we're talking specifics, like I love Strikingly as a landing page maker. People love Thrive Themes. There's a million of tools out there, but like take $500, target the right audience on Facebook and Instagram, see if your message resonates, see if they convert. I'm not sure who your audience is, but meaning, do they sign up for the email list? Do they click the button? Are they doing something that's transactional that proves that they're interested? And if they're not, and that you're acquiring them at a rate that you can be profitable. So if you spend $500 and one person does it, your cost of acquisition is $500. Likely that you're not selling something that's profitable in that way, which I'm sure you guys all understand what I'm talking about here. But make sure that your numbers start to make sense. And if it works, we'll keep going. If it doesn't work, refine the message until it doesn't work. But there are pop-up opportunities to launch restaurants and buy. You rent a food truck to test out a food concept. It's very easy and low cost. to launch and try to prove a software concept. It's very easy and low cost to do what we're doing right now and start to put out good quality content. So I think the first step is just getting out the door, sharing your idea and testing it to see if it works. In my case, our MVP was we did a flyover video. I found somebody on Upwork, this unbelievable architectural student from Ukraine, and he created a 3D rendering of what we were building. We put some awesome hype music to it. And we were it was a right place, right time moment. And I was able to fund the whole thing and get enough interest with this one video. The whole webpage until like a week before the event was basically this video with a little detail, but maybe it was 2 weeks before the event, inspiring people with what's coming. And that was enough to create the momentum. And it was a few $100. But without that, like the whole, I mean, I needed to sell something. I had no product. I hadn't run a festival before. So figure out the fastest and cheapest path to seeing if you can prove something right and most likely wrong.
That's awesome.
I think what's so like interesting, and I feel like since like for the last like 15 minutes as we've been talking, a lot of it is like figuring it out. I feel like as an entrepreneur, you get into a lot of different unknown territories that you really just have to figure it out. And so, you know, I'm sure running like a festival or getting these connections, like there was a lot of different times that you had to honestly just kind of back up and say, like, I haven't done this before, but how am I going to get there? What am I going to do to figure it out? And I feel like that's like as an entrepreneur, that's like a strength that you kind of acquire and kind of get into, and not taking no for an answer.
I think it's the idea of being resourceful and scrappy to me. I think are thinking about, you know, you've only got access to so many people, so many tools, dollars, whatever is at your fingertips. So thinking about like, who do I know, or how could I create enough goodwill with someone who I might not know, who might be willing to help me with something. And so in my case, I create a lot of goodwill with the meetups over the years. And so like Gary, I was fortunate enough to, you know, he committed to speak very early on. That levered into other really great things. James Altucher, another one. So I was able to, but you know, in my case, I built those relationships over the long haul in many years before. For people who may not have the time or the network to do that, like I think authenticity goes a long way. And if you have the right ask and you have the right value exchange, even if 9 out of 10 say no, one person is usually willing to say yes. And if you do that enough, I mean, that's the hustle. If you do that enough, you can really build something and get help.
My professional career, I came from event planning. And so when I was in event planning, it was like, it's so interesting how you're saying this, is because, you know, as like a job description per se, you kind of wear many hats. Like you're not like you're an event planner, but you literally just have to figure it out. You have to make it work. There's so many things that are going to pop up that aren't what you planned for. And there's so many ways that you have to connect different people or connect and use your resources. And so building that relationship to know that who you can fall back on when like everything kind of flies awry, like how it's going to work. So I think it's important. And what you're saying, it's very interesting because it kind of aligns with the event aspect of it.
Events suck, honestly. I hope
They do, don't they? I always tell everyone that they're not glamorous. Everyone thinks event planning is this like shiny object that's so glamorous and easy, and it's not. It's a lot of spreadsheets. It's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that you really don't know about, and it's so true.
There he is.
And that's the first thing when I came on board to On Air Brands, I'm like, listen, there's so much that it's not glamorous.
Can I say from my perspective, it's a joy. I love it, you know, because I mean, the key is to have a team of people that can crush the back end, that are organized. By no means am I a super organized person, because I'm a right brain creative thinker. And I'm sure, Aaron, it sounds to me like you lean more toward the left analytical side. But, you know, a lot of us entrepreneurs are you know, the ones that can really leverage situations and opportunities, they fall somewhere in the middle. But yeah, from my perspective, I love events because of the byproduct of it, you know, and like you said, Aaron, leaning into your superpower in terms of, for me, that is inspiring people and teams and getting them to do bigger things together. And that's what your communities have done. And I imagine was the driving force and the fuel for Propelify and now New Jersey Tech Council. But I wanted to rewind quickly about something that you said earlier for folks that are listening and they're looking for actionable steps, because that is the majority of our audience. They're solopreneurs, they're startups, and I know you play heavy in the startup space. When figuring out, especially when you're throwing ads out there, and you know you need a marketing budget at some point. Someone told me, I forgot who, a mentor early on said, whatever your price point is, if it's $500, if it's $1,000, that one admission ticket should be the start of your marketing budget. So then you break even as soon as one person buys in. So then you can start to grow that eventually. And I thought that was really good advice when we were first starting out, was like, okay, now we know, it's a $2,000 ticket. Let's allocate $2,000 and we know that we're getting that money back. But I mean, what do you think, Aaron, about things like that and other sort of strategies that people can use to start marketing?
I like that idea. I mean, I think it depends on how valuable your product or service is, your price point. I like the idea that you get to a place where you cover some element of your cost and the time. If you're selling a $25 thing, then I might tweak that to some volume of those widgets. But I do think that makes sense. I mean, I think that I think there's just so many tools and resources that, especially when my first company was in college, it was 1998, and we started one of the first online food ordering services like what Seamless is today. And this is a time when it was flip phones, there wasn't as much broadband adoption. Like getting an MVP out the door there was no MVP. It was like, we got to figure out how to build this thing. And we used Elance, which was since acquired by Upwork, to find some developing talent. But it was really, really hard. It was really expensive. And this is at a time, again, when like I'd go to restaurants and talk about, we're going to set up your online food ordering services. And they're like, no one's ever going to want to order online. I mean, the world is very different. Now, yeah, imagine that. There'll never be a pandemic where you can only order online. Now, like, there are so many tools at your fingertips. Like, I could stand up what I just explained, what took us, I don't even know how long it ended up taking us, but probably 6 months or a year if I looked back. I could probably build an MVP of what I just described in maybe a weekend now. And that would be too much, right? Like now it would be driving the value prop, like wish you had more time to be with your kids or whatever, depending on your market. Here's in more, tired of having mistakes in your order. There's 1,000 pain points that online ordering solves, but I would test against those. But like, this is where like scrappy things like Fiverr and Upwork, and I mentioned Strikingly, it's not as robust, but I think it's a really great looking tool. And I could probably think of a bunch of others. Envato has great video and digital content in general, but things that are sub $100 and sometimes sub $10 and sometimes free can get you really far. So I think that yes, proof point of some level of sustainability, which I think what you're getting at. Can you deliver one for 1,000 or maybe 100 for $20 or whatever it is? Makes sense. I think getting out of your comfort zone, talking to people who aren't your family and friends, getting some real proof points, like doing the hard things. Sometimes like walk into the Starbucks and talk to the 20 people sitting around. I mean, I find you got to get out and see if people are willing to get behind your idea. That was one of the earlier things that I obviously with the festival. The first thing I did was make sure the town would let me figure out a way to afford the pier in Hoboken, which they did. I started locking in some speakers, started leveraging my network to see if I can get some sponsors. Closed a 6-figure sponsor, had a Gary Vee, had a couple of things and saw like, okay, I've got the momentum. I can take this risk, which it was an enormous risk. I remember 2 weeks before the event feeling like I'm going to have a heart attack. Like people who have heart attacks probably start to feel this way. Like, so this was no walk. Like this was, and it hasn't been easy since. I'll come back to your point about practicality, but on the whole, like events suck thing, the byproduct events are great. And I think that's what makes me keep torturing myself, because bringing two people together is very, very powerful. But for people who are in software, if you say I'm going to ship a product on whatever Friday, if Friday comes along and you can't quite make it or you ship half the product, like that works, right? The event is Friday, and if you screw it up, like people are still coming. Like you are shipping no matter what. You can't really move it. And so it's a very, very intense behind the scenes what goes on to make sure all those things work. And when you're under-resourced and you have 8,000 people coming in 2 stages and it's your first time, like it's a very, very, very intense process. So, the byproduct is good. And so somehow we keep doing it. But I think just going in eyes wide open about the challenges, all these things are difficult. Mine happened to be an event. There's other stuff that sucked. That's the game. And if you can persevere through those things, I think you can come out the other side. But I do think people need to understand, especially when I think startup culture is celebritized and there's all this XYZ raised $1 bazillion. Like it was never easy for those people in the beginning. And maybe it was slightly easier for some than others. But every one of those stories has, a lot of struggle along the way.
You had mentioned bringing people together is very valuable, which fantastic, important quote. So when we pull the lens back on you and everything you're doing today, it is and always has been all about community, right? So do you consciously or deliberately create community to the end of reaching your goals?
It didn't start out that way. It started out with my friends have more traditional careers. So they were working at whatever, Ernst & Young. And Ernst & Young has a natural social structure built in, and they have natural like career path built in, and you got a bonus, and you go to the Hanukkah or the Christmas party, and like there's stuff built around that infrastructure that as a guy in my 20s, I didn't have any of that. So it literally came from being very lonely, going, I was the only guy I knew for a long time doing anything as a technology entrepreneur. And so in 2008, I went to my first startup weekend, and I remember thinking like, holy crap, which was the first one in New York City at the time, or ever. And I was like, oh my God, I'm with a group of people who see the world like I do. This is unbelievable. And so I was very inspired, and it was very energizing. And so then I went to a couple other small things. I mean, the New York ecosystem was very very immature at the time. And so then I still lived in Hoboken, I still do, and I was like, well, maybe I can get some people together in my backyard. It started with just like, how can we help each other? Because I think I would save myself I would make fewer mistakes. So my end goal was like, try not to be the solo guy in a warehouse, which is what I was doing at the time. And surround myself with other people who I might make some friends, and it might actually help each other build their businesses quicker. So that was the original intent.
I want to highlight something here. If you actually go to a Propelify Innovation Festival, and that brand still is running, right? That's still alive and well, and you're going to have those when everything gets back to normal.
Every year.
I highly recommend you go, because you may, in fact, meet your future wife or spouse. Like Altucher is crediting Propelify for meeting Robin, his wife. And it's funny, right, Aaron, that I think you found that out when we were all together. Like, I had no idea, but right. Congratulations. But you never know who you're going to meet, especially at high level, sort of cool networking events like that. But I wanted to reference Altucher also because when I was having a chat with him, he was talking about specifically selling a company, and that if you wanted to develop a company as quickly as possible for sale, create a software company or something that is tech based, because like you were referencing, delivering a product like an event, there's many moving parts. There's many things that could really throw a monkey wrench into the machine, like a storm. But with software, you're decreasing the risk in terms of all the variables to make your deliverable date. So I just wanted to highlight that, and also segue into the creation and the selling of your business. Like, how did that all come about?
So it got to a place where I wanted to raise some outside capital to grow. We were doing reasonably well, but it's a tough business. Events at scale, at festivals in particular, most of them aren't profitable for 3 years. In general, we have been profitable since the first, but we needed some extra capital to grow. And so I started looking for some investors. And I hadn't raised any outside capital. So one of them made an offer, and having not raised any outside money, like any offer was interesting to entertain. And in thinking through what I thought the end game was if I raised some money and what this offer looked like, I decided to run a process. So I kind of leveraged that into, okay, let's see who else might be interested. I literally made a list of anybody I could think of who might want to acquire something like this, including VaynerMedia and Entrepreneur Magazine and those kinds of folks. And reached out to drum up interest. Who's interested in basically getting into what's typically known as like the data room, which is like the learn more. So here's like the little teaser thing. I mean, literally the process was make a spreadsheet, come up with a teaser email, get it into the right hands. If they expressed interest, show them more and more information until they said, we want to make an offer or not. So ultimately, I had an offer from Entrepreneur Magazine, I had an offer from VaynerMedia, and I had an offer from another company. And the Tech Council wasn't really part of the equation. A brief aside, the New Jersey Tech Council is like a 24-year-old nonprofit in New Jersey that has a similar mission, but a very different way of executing against that mission around empowering entrepreneurs and innovators. They have their own venture fund. It's got a really great foundation. And over the last few years, they never really latched onto the startup community in a way that I was able to with the Meetup and Propelify. And so kind of coincidentally, I sat down with one of their board members to catch up on some things. It was clear that they were interested in making some changes. And I never really imagined that they would be ultimately the most interesting offer. But ultimately, they were for me. And so, we made a deal for them to acquire Propelify and to take over CEO of the council. And it was the best decision I ever made. There are some people who might hear this and think, I can't believe you didn't go with Gary or others that sound sexier. And I'll explain to you why that is. If I were 22 and didn't have I've got a wife and 2 kids somewhere downstairs, and if I wasn't if I didn't have to worry about the financial reality of my life, I might have tried something that was a little riskier or had different opportunity. So I think that, if people get to this position, being really clear on what your needs and goals are is really important. Like Gary was rightfully leveraging the work with me over the next decade, and here's what we'll build together. But it was the least sort of cash upfront offer. The council had different resources and levers to work with. And so for me, it made a lot more sense to go with the more guaranteed financial structure of the council and understand. And then there are other issues I can share, but then to kind of, not that it's much of a gamble, but a very different kind of a gamble on working with a Vayner or Entrepreneur Magazine, which was cool too. But at the end of the day, I had to look at where I am in my life. What's the outcome I want to have happen here? What does this potentially lead to? And so it made the most sense, and it's been awesome.
Wow. Congrats on that, by the way.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you.
I know one of your events under the Propelify brand is or was going to ski resorts, bringing in a bunch of venture capitalists and a bunch of entrepreneurs to not only ski and have a fantastic time over the long weekend, but also be able to sort of network and pitch each other. I'd love to hear more about exactly what this was, what the goal was, but also tie it into the benefit of the entrepreneur listening, because they need, right? How important is coming prepared with an elevator pitch, right? Or just knowing what you're about, who you're serving. Speak on that, please.
Yeah. First of all, critically important that you can communicate what it is you do and how you do it and why you're the person very succinctly. I think it's sometimes more important than what you actually do is your ability to communicate that thing. And so we've done programming to help people refine their pitch and pitch coaching, because I think it is absolutely critical, especially the more we're all enormously distracted. It's harder and harder to get people's attention in real life and online. And if you can't capture somebody's attention and explain why they should listen, I think you lose them very, very quickly. What you're talking about is an event that Primary Venture Partners started, I don't remember when, several years ago, called Peak Pitch. And the idea is they would bring entrepreneurs and investors to a mountain, and entrepreneurs would get on the ski lift. They'd pitch an investor on the way up. They'd ski down. They'd switch. It's an overnight. So there's a dinner, there's some other networking. It's a lot of fun. And it's a great way to build relationships, and people kind of have their guard down. And so Primary, I think they ran it for like 7 years. And they were ready to move on from hosting that event. They had other things they wanted to do and felt like they got, I think, the most benefit out of that event that they wanted for the time being. And so they approached Newark Venture Partners and me at the time to talk about what you guys want to take over. So I don't want to claim that we started this thing, but we were thrilled to take it over from Primary. And it's very in line culturally with what we do, right? I want to create experiences that are really authentic to the community. I think if you go to an event from, I don't know, let's say Inc. Magazine, and it's $1,500 a ticket, and it's at a fancy ballroom, and it'll be great, but it's a very different thing than when you go into one of my events that's $50 or less, that's thousands of people who are really, the very different profile of entrepreneur. So I think the Peak Pitch, the festival, some of these other things, I think they're because it's who I am. I've been an entrepreneur and I've needed this opportunity myself. I think it's resonated really well with the community. And I could specifically in ways that other things I've been involved with weren't really about me. There were other companies I've had that kind of went sideways. And when I look back, I think it's because I was being more opportunistic about that industry, but it wasn't really part of who I was.
If I heard this correctly, during peak pitch, the pitch actually happens. You get an investor, you get an entrepreneur, you sit them on the chairlift going up the mountain. Go, guys. And on the way up is the pitch. And now we're skiing down the mountain and it all happens again. Absolutely brilliant and genius. Can you share with us something you may have learned? Give the person listening some tangible. What does make a good pitch?
So great question. The format that I like, and there's a lot of things out there. I like crisp problem, really crisp solution, any mention of traction, with something curious that these people wanting more, right? If we're literally talking about the 60-second version, there's only so much you can squeeze in. And so if it's, I just think that it's got, think about it as storytelling, which is a big cliche, but how would you capture that story arc in a way that people, like the goal of the pitch, this is critical. The goal of the pitch is to get the next meeting. It's not to get a check in 60 seconds. It's just to get someone to say, that sounds really interesting. Why don't we schedule a time for us to sit down? If we're talking about the 60-second version or the chairlift version, which I think was 3 minutes. So keeping that goal in mind, what will leave this person curious enough at the end of this, thinking that I might be the right person and this industry might be interesting and my solution might be the right thing, that will get them to say, let's sit down and talk more about this. I think you have to be really tight on what that looks like.
The most incredible thing you just pointed out, which stands repeat, is the goal of any pitch is not to get the check. It's to get the next meeting. That can change everything.
100%.
Yeah. Sometimes it's to get the check. At some point, you need to go in and ask.
Sometimes.
But the first couple, certainly the first meeting is not about get the check. I think you got to turn it around. Some people, I think, especially VCs, but in general, if you can empathize with what this person might look, what the investor is going through. I'll just go to the VC world because I've had some experience there. They might see 100 pitches that week. And the thing that they're talking about every Monday's the partner meeting, is which one of these should we invest in because it's interesting, and should we invest in now? And you need both of those things, because the VCs will hold on to their money. Like, you might have something cool, and they're like, the worst thing that can happen, this happens all the time, is this sounds interesting, let's stay in touch. And usually you're in this like pattern of, okay, we'll see you in 3 months, we'll see you in 3 months, until you have a moment where it's like, shit, if we don't invest right now, we're going to miss it. Like, you want to have this, the train's leaving the station, venture capitalist or investor. And if you don't get involved now, basically you're going to pay a premium. It's the valuation of the value of my business is going to go up over time. So eventually you're going to want to get involved, and your same dollars will earn you less equity in this business. So the more you can do to create the idea of the now factor, once you get to the ask, like, we're about to sign XYZ client, which would drive up the valuation of the company. We're about to raise money from somebody else who might kick you out. Like, anything you could do to show momentum, they want to be ahead of that curve, because that's literally how they make money. If they want to buy at a lower price and sell at a higher price. So if you're showing the price is about to go up, like, that could create momentum.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your thought. But
that was it. I'm good.
Okay, this is so gold, because I'm gonna paint a picture here for you, Aaron. So there's a product that we've created, and you are sort of the impetus for it, because you created something that you didn't realize at the time. You called it Podcast Row, and Donnie picked it up, literally took the name and created an event out of it, right? So that's where I met Josh Carey and you again. But then we got to talk, we got to love, and we started to realize, and I spoke with Donnie about partnering, because I'm heavy in the real estate investing space. I said, we could do exactly this model, but in real estate investing. And he goes, oh, it sounds interesting. But then he eventually decided to move on and do what they were doing. So we created Pod Max, and it started to explode, Aaron. It was crazy. And it's funny to think that what we're doing, and we fuse our own DNA into it. So now it's not just real estate investing, it's all of entrepreneurship. But we started to put in keynote, not just keynote speakers, but we would put in panelists. So we would have a panelist in the middle of the day, and then at the end of the day, we would have a keynote. Like we had Jason Pfeiffer, Entrepreneur Magazine, and Christina Everett from iHeart, and now we had James Orsini from Vayner. So that's become our sort of structure, flow, and DNA for our event. And now we're doing all this cool stuff virtually with breakout rooms and networking through breakout rooms, and people are just loving the virtual version of it. And it's funny because as we were setting up this conversation, I was like, Aaron was pretty much the seed that planted PodMax. It's pretty cool.
Glad to hear that.
How did I do on that pitch, by the way?
I mean, you told a good story. We didn't need an ask. So I don't know if it was officially a pitch, but it's a really good story.
But yeah, if you were to pitch that, for example, because you're very familiar with the structure, we've incorporated unique things about it and made it our own. But how would you sort of go about that when pitching a VC? Same thing as you. We're always thinking of Vayner. That's why we're aligning with them. We're aligned with all the same brands that you're talking about. There is a unique quality to it that, especially now that it's virtual. And I'm sure I'd love to talk about your challenges and pivots when it comes to your events becoming virtual. What are some of the ways that you think that we can all sort of grab more attention? And get people interested from the VC level.
So a couple clarifying questions. Do you mean, how could you pitch what you just explained to me to a VC for them to invest in, or for them to be on the show?
The former.
Yeah, to pitch it.
How would they invest?
Yeah, because we want to grow. Okay. We want to get big. We're going global. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the who pays? Who's the target actual?
The entrepreneur.
The entrepreneur pays to be on, to go to the event.
Right.
Yeah.
And
or is it to create a podcast?
It gets them in one day the ability to record as a guest on 3 shows, and in between those
We're
sessions,
talking about the podcast pro experience.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Rapid fire, lots of things at once. Okay, got it. Okay, so put me on the spot here, but I'll do my best. I might say something like, the average, it costs on average, I don't know what it is, I'm making these numbers up, $1,500 and 8 hours of somebody's time to produce a show. The average PR consultant costs 10 grand a month to invest. At PodMax, we sell, or is that, that's the name, right?
PodMax, yeah.
Okay, good. At PodMax, for, I don't know what it is, $500, we get entrepreneurs on 12 shows in half a day, saving them, I didn't do the math, whatever the hell I just said, $15,000 in cost, and amplifying their reach to what we've shown now to be over whatever the hell, 500 million listeners, right? Then I would go to market, right? The market for producing content, and there's a mix between content creation and the PR angle here, but I would have some version of, the market here is $2 billion are spent on content creation, plus another $2 billion spent on PR for people whose job it is to get people on these shows. And it's growing, it's doubled, every year for the last 100 years, right? We've been doing this for whatever. We've had 16 entrepreneurs, we've been doing this for this long. We've generated this much revenue, and we're about to do something. Do you want to learn more? That's kind of the structure I think I would go with.
It's really leaning heavy into the data, right? So we're
if
great
you have it, you guys have it.
Oh yeah. Over time, right? We start to collect more and more data. But we've the proof of concept is there, and the team is here, and we're developing and growing the data to back up the concept. So yeah, it's cool, man. And thanks for doing a live case study.
Did I even get the concept right? Was I close to any of the pain points you think about?
Yeah, you got most of it.
Because that is the pain points. Yeah.
Exactly. And I love how you said that the perfect pitch includes the crisp problem, the crisp solution, a mention of traction, and leaving them wanting more, all packaged together in a storytelling bundle. So you must know the problem you are solving for the audience you are trying to reach. Yes?
Yeah. If you don't put yourself in your customer's shoes, you can, or if you haven't been that customer, it's very hard to speak authentically to that person. It's very hard to write copy that's going to resonate with those people when you're guessing at what they want.
Yeah. What are you guys building now? What is the pivot? How is Propelify and New Jersey Tech Council handling?
Well, we're
this?
changing the name. We're changing the name of the New Jersey Tech Council next Friday is the goal. I'm very excited about where that's headed. Can't announce it yet, but we're
damn.
Well, breaking news. We can't have the
Breaking news.
the announcement. No.
we're getting there.
What is the current title? Is it New Jersey Tech? What's the title of the relationship between Propelify and New Jersey Tech Council right now? How are they on paper?
So the New Jersey Tech Council acquired Propelify. The New Jersey Tech Council is the entity that operates a variety of events throughout the year. Propelify now is one of those experiences.
So you're changing the name of New Jersey Tech Council. What about Propelify? Will that remain? Will that fizzle out? Will that stay on top?
Propelify will remain. Propelify we will lean into as the festival. For me, when I was running that company, I continually positioned it as we're not just the festival, we do all this other stuff. We were really well known for the festival itself. So now I'm saying, let's just leave Propelify as the festival, as the event, this new entity, but the New Jersey Tech Council will be the operating brand that brings all these other experiences to market.
Why are you changing the name?
The new name, so a few reasons. There's a lot of legacy. I mentioned there's a really strong foundation around the New Jersey Tech Council. I see that every time I touch this desk to use my hand, this whole thing shakes. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
You're at a standing desk, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I converted to a stand, but I didn't know we were going for an hour. I might have sat down, but that's all right.
You're burning calories.
You're not tired.
We knew when we're all sitting.
And the soft, cushy mat because my back, I'm old. Everything starts to hurt.
You're not old.
Yeah, I'm not as young as I was. My back does really hurt. So I wanted a brand that represented where we're going. And I think when I thought back at what was so powerful about the meetup, and what's been so powerful about the Tech Council is it's the power of what we mentioned before of what happens when you bring together the tech community and the unpredictable moments that come out of and there's the connections that come out of what happens when the tech community unites. And so we thought a lot about that. And Propelify. So the meetup, right? New Jersey Tech Meetup is a static name. I struggled with some of the positioning there for a few reasons. One, because it's static. Two, because the word meetup is in it, and people. The brand association with being a meetup didn't command high dollars, even though we were basically running like a monthly conference for 200 people. So that was top of mind. Propelify has a lot of energy and it was a very thoughtful name. I deliberately didn't have the location built into it, but I wanted us to build a reputation in New Jersey, but it wasn't just because of New Jersey. So in coming to the council, knowing that we weren't necessarily pulling along the next generation of entrepreneurs, we do a great job with growth stage companies and corporates, like I said, really strong foundational roots with some really huge companies you talked about earlier, Josh. Like some of the biggest companies, in the States, some Verizon's and AT&T's and Deloitte and Ernst & Young and Bell Labs, like some heavy marquee names, but not enough of the younger companies. And I don't necessarily mean younger people, just newer companies. And so I was thinking, could we build something that would position us in a way that's kind of the best of both worlds, that would keep some of this focus around New Jersey, but also lean into something a slightly more of an action and powerful. And so, I mean, I'd love to tell you what it is, but I got to wait till we announce it next week. But I think we landed in a place that both graphically and the word itself just kind of represent the new chapter for where we're going.
Before all of this, before the rug got pulled out from under us in March, I mean, I always say Eric and I in early March were at a podcast industry event. We had scheduled through September 6 or 8 live events that we were going to be part of, bring our stuff to, etc. We come back in March and no, you can't do that for the foreseeable future. One of the things on our radar was what you were going to do. We saw called the Startup Summer House that I was very excited in talking to Anna about. How could we be involved in something like that? What is that and where is that?
That's really a bummer, but it's going to be awesome in 2021. So you were asking about where are we going as a council, like what's going on. So besides the brand change, my focus is let's lean in on our strengths. Let's not pretend we're New York. Let's not look at Philly. Like what do we have here in New Jersey that works for us? And so in Hoboken. That's, the festival did that in many ways. We leveraged geographically the proximity to New York, this very beautiful space, and then we programmed it really, really well. And so I think there was a geographic advantage with, what was the backdrop in New York City and the rest of it. But in general around the state, I think there are some industry advantages. So we recently launched a major partnership with PSE&G around the Clean Tech Alliance, and that'll be delivering programs around the clean tech industry and creating opportunities for entrepreneurs and mentors around that vertical, where I think New Jersey has a place to stand out. We have a relatively new health tech alliance with Hackensack Meridian Health, and I'm hoping we're going to launch a Smart Cities alliance with another major sponsor. So those are industry differentiators. I also think about, like, geographically, it's a big state. Where are their strengths? So now I'm going to answer your question finally, which is the Jersey Shore, I think, is a major strength of the state, right? A lot of us spend time going to the shore, have fond memories there. Happens to be a TV show that doesn't paint us in the best light. And I thought we could turn that ship around. And so the concept is rent a house for a month. I mean, we were doing this next month. We have a house that was rented in Spring Lake, a 10-bedroom, beautiful home on the beach. Entrepreneurs were going to apply to get in, and each week was going to have a different vertical focus. So like that clean tech, health tech, et cetera, focus each week. There's a pitch competition built into it. So every day they're pitching and refining their pitch. So the Monday they come in, they pitch to start. By Friday, we were going to have a pitch competition that we were going to hold at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park and declare a winner each week. Do that, so basically a finalist each week, and at the end have a grand finale where the winner from each week was going to actually win the whole thing. We were going to film the whole thing, because I know you guys appreciate good content, and turn it into a reality show of some kind that we were starting to shop around. And, because I think basically I want to create a lot more noise about, there's really interesting people. We can have a good time. Like, we can do well, do good, have fun all at the same time. We can leverage what, there's a great business community that tends to go down the shore. Like, let's give them an excuse to get together on Fridays and do something, good for business and fun at the same time. So Startup Summer House will be back next summer, I hope, I expect.
Wow.
It's a bummer because,
my heart is literally breaking. When I saw that announcement, I said, Eric, this is for us. Yeah. And then we were in touch with your people. And oh my God, I was like, that's so up my alley, up our alley, what we want, what is just so cool. Netflix will buy it, the whole nine.
I don't know about you guys, but I'll be in Spring Lake at that house, Aaron. Since it's going to be empty anyway.
See who shows up. You still have the keys?
I'm lucky that the owner is. What's interesting about that is, you would think, we had a healthy budget. Like, I really budgeted for, like, all right, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. A lot of people who own houses like this really didn't care about the money and really did not want. They're so stung by the Jersey Shore TV show. They're like, maybe next year, once we see whatever this is, if it's not garbage and it paints us in a good light, maybe I'll consider it. But it was actually a lot harder than I thought. It makes sense in retrospect, but it was a lot harder than I thought it would be to find a house, a big, beautiful luxury home that somebody would be willing to let all these people come through for a month. So we did find somebody who was very cool and also very flexible, was understanding and willing to let us punt to next year. So Spring Lake 2021.
Cool. So what have you guys been doing over the past couple of months, in terms of building or planning?
We've been doing a lot of leaning. The things I just explained about, let's lean into our strengths. Let's figure out, a lot of that goes into, like, what's the event program look like? What's the team structure look like? There's been a lot of turnover with the team. What does this new brand, look like? Basically, I came in last August. Propelify was September. We had a couple of other council events in September. Then we had a leadership summit in November, and a gala, our big annual awards gala was in early December. So I didn't really have a chance to come up to breathe until January. I mean, of course, we were talking the whole time about, okay, what does 2020 look like? But it was hard to focus because all of those things required a lot of effort. We finally started getting a lot of that focus in January, February, March. March 12th, we had a board meeting, and that was our last day in the office, and the world's been upside down. So we've just been transitioning to everything online. So what we've been up to is refining the team. We are actively looking for a new head of sales if anybody's interested. Coming up with the right event structure for the rest of the year. Originally, it was what's online, what's off. Now we're planning for everything being offline, online. How do we lean into high quality production? Like, I think things like this make a huge difference for engagement, and we've been using Zoom, but I don't think it's the best platform for these kinds of things. So figuring out what's the right cadence of events. How do we get away from things that are just events? How do we add other thought leadership? Where is there other opportunity to scale that's not just an event? How do we put out good thought leadership? And you know, we've had some great shows. We had an event with Tim, you know, a show with Tim Draper, and we did an interview with Al Roker. We've had some, you know, some interesting guests. I want to elevate the brand, create more awareness around the interesting opportunities and people in New Jersey, and differentiate. How do we, you know, part of this PSEGE deal is we have a $50,000 startup challenge, and they're saying they want to work with startups. So now it's not about New Jersey. It's about, hey, if you're a startup in the clean tech space and PSEG might be a good client, we can get you in the door and get you seen at the most senior levels to be evaluated as a customer. And that happens to be good for New Jersey and in New Jersey. But I want to focus on how do we create best of breed opportunities that attract people from everywhere, the byproduct of which will be really good for the region.
Wow. Smart and generous are just two of the words I would use to describe Aaron Price. Is this not incredible? Amazing content. Thank you for opening up and
Really,
sharing.
thank you for sharing. Amazing stuff.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
What's the best ways people can hit you up if they want to know more, work with you, join you for 2021 events?
LinkedIn's probably the best. Twitter as well. AP Startup on Twitter. I think you had a link up to my. It's not really an @ but we'll call it @AR Price on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm around.
Awesome.
I do my best to respond. So if you have ideas, you want to get involved, you want to be part of the community, you want to
100%,
speak, host, sponsor.
Yeah, we have
I
an
think
event coming
I
up.
meant for your audience, for you guys,
Yeah.
we got to get you involved in the house. We're
Yes.
moving the festival towards a virtual event. We've got to figure out the right fit for whatever you want to do there.
Cool.
So there's plenty of opportunity to work together
Yeah,
here. I know there's a lot of Jersey
and
pride here.
Oh, tons.
Yeah, Jersey girl for life.
We're all
Absolutely.
Jers. We're all Jers. But Aaron, yeah, we do have an event. We have our next PodMax event coming July 10th. So yeah, anyways, we want to talk and maybe work together on that.
Integrate.
Integrate stuff, you know, maybe put some of maybe the new brand by then into what we're doing, plug in. Yeah. But anyone who's listening, anyone who's watching, go to the website. Registration is open, right, Josh Carey?
Right now, it's open.
It's open today officially. So I know a lot of people were banging on the door to get in, and now the door is open and you can go in. There's new packages in there. Originally, Aaron, we had one price point. Now we have 3 levels, and the 3 levels, and then now we have sponsorship packages. So it's really cool. The stuff that we're pushing out, we're really answering to the call of the people and what they want and what they're looking for. So yeah, I hope everybody can check out what we've put out there. It's all live, podmax.co. Is there a special / there to go right to the page?
Absolutely not. It's just PodMax CO. Now, if only we can get our pitch right, which we will be working on, that crisp problem, that crisp solution to traction, and wrapping it all together to get that meeting.
For all podcast fans, though, I highly recommend what reminded me when you were talking about that, Aaron, was Startup. So Gimlet Media documented the creation of Gimlet. And if spoiler alert, because when I was listening to it, Gimlet didn't exist, you know, because I was right in on the day one when Alex launched it. So it's really cool journey to listen to. It's reality radio pretty much. And you hear him pitching to VCs and how nervous he was, and he in bed and talking to his wife in these late night conversations about how he's going to handle it and how terrible his first pitch was. You get to hear it all. It's such a great show. Yeah, Startup podcast on Gimlet Media.
And then Spotify buys them. So little things.
Yeah, just little things.
For a lot. I think it was something like a 9-figure deal. I forget how much it was, but it was a lot of money.
Oh, definitely 9 figures. Yes.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, but good stuff.
But like what a great representation of an idea that's not that unique, just executed so well, right? I mean, their content is top notch. This, you know, there are other startup podcasts, but his is so well produced, and so engaging. Like high quality product matters. You know,
and talking about leaning into your superpower. You know, Alex Bloomberg was a content creating guy for NPR, and then everybody got to know him and his brand, and he was just an expert at that. And then he built an entire company and then sold it. And it was such an inspiration to watch that move. And even with you, you know, because I remember you prior to all of the Propelify stuff and Jersey Tech Council. So yeah, it's so cool to watch the journey. It's really inspiring because, you know, that is the path that we're on, and, you know, we'll all do it together, you know, as one big happy family.
Awesome.
Love it.
Great.
All right, folks.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah.
People should go to podmax.co and register. I know that they having been part of some of the experiences before, I know it's very worthwhile.
Oh yeah,
Thank
so
you.
much fun. So much fun, brother.
And thank you for spending your time opening up so generously. Absolutely
And
perfect.
for
Thank you.
standing.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll let you sit down now.
I need
Next time you can
I need
sit.
a fancy mic windscreen like you have going on there. That's what I need.
Yeah,
That gold cover on the mic. I need one of those.
that is the
Yeah.
PodMax
Yeah.
mic. You look, we have it in the background and everything, but
It's not
Yeah,
even
we-
covered. That's just how it shows up, literally.
yeah, give us your address, brother. We'll send you some cool swag. Maybe a mic will be in there. But all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We'll be here every Wednesday at 11. Thanks to Aaron. Thanks to Devin, Lisa, Josh, and of course, Jake. Boy, wonderful. Take us out, brother.
See you guys.
Hi.
Ciao.